Yeah, maybe I should just do the... Yeah. Water. Earth. Fire. Air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony, but everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them, but when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed, and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he still has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world. Do. Welcome to a bonus episode about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Woo!
So I'm here with Bethany, and first I just want to say that, I'm so relieved that you liked this show.
I really did. I didn't think that I would not. I thought that I would like it. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did.
I was... So, some... Backing up first. So, obviously, I'm sure everyone already knows that Avatar: The Last Airbender dropped on Netflix, I don't know, probably a month ago now at this point.
Yeah.
And the world freaked out.
Rightfully so.
It was number one on Netflix for a week or so.
We all needed it.
Yeah, we all needed it. And there's a great TikTok, and it's a guy at a protest, and he goes hey, I'd love to be at home right now catching up on Avatar instead of fighting for my rights, but here we are. And then someone was like, the police are the Fire Nation. And then someone else was like, only Obama, master of all four nations, could save us, but when the world needed him most, he vanished. Oh, so funny. And so Bethany, so listeners, obviously you know, I love Avatar. I've made many references. And then Bethany has some vague memories from childhood, but didn't watch the show. Mm-hmm. So when it dropped on Netflix, I was like, oh, please watch it. Meanwhile, fearing inside that you would be I don't get, it's an okay show, but I don't get it. It's not that good. Yeah. Why are people obsessed with it? Mm-hmm. But you enjoyed it!
I did, and I was also a little bit worried about that, because there are some shows that people watched when they came out when we were in elementary and middle school and just have that nostalgia thing with it.
Yeah.
I watched Halloween Town for the first time in college, and everybody was like, oh my god, our college put it on in the theater for everyone for Halloween.
I went to go see that.
And everyone was like, oh yes, this is so exciting. And I'd never seen it before, so I was like, alright, sure, let's see what all the hype is about. And I hated it.
Yeah, the effects... This is
so dumb.
The effects do not live up.
And my Disney Halloween movie is Hocus Pocus, and I've watched that with a friend who had never seen it before, and she felt the same way, and I was offended. Yeah. This is cinematic brilliance, but, there's a lot of that nostalgia that goes along with it. So going into Avatar, I was a little bit okay, I watched, a handful of episodes as a kid, loved it, thought it was so cool, but then wasn't allowed to finish watching it. So it was well, is it still gonna hit the same way as an adult? Is it gonna be I'm too old and grouchy to enjoy it now?
I was also kind of worried about that too, because I don't think I had watched it probably since I was in middle school or something. Mm-hmm. And so I was worried that it's gonna drop on Netflix and we're all gonna have this collective realization that maybe it actually isn't that good.
Right,
but
right.
I think it really holds up still. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of themes that are still really relevant and a lot of teachable lessons that are going to be timeless. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I sent Bethany a couple questions just so that she wasn't caught off guard. So we're just going to do a kind of a general, somewhat loosey-goosey conversation, but I figured these questions could be interesting. So the first one, what was your favorite episode?
Okay, so I told Mary Clay I'm bad. I wrote down 3, but she said that's okay. But I think, there's probably similar themes in all of them. The first one I put down was from Book 1, Chapter 20, which is the finale of Season 1, The Siege of the North. I loved that episode. I think that's the first one that we watched together on the Netflix thing.
Yeah, so Bethany and I did a couple Netflix watch parties for, I think we did them for the two part one and two of season 1 finale. I think we did it for the finale of season 2.
Yes.
And then I think maybe
Ember
like
Island Players.
And then I made her do it for Ember Island Players.
And then you came over for the last one.
And then we broke quarantine for the big finale. Which by the way, I went back, so because we watched it on your Netflix account, my Netflix account was like, continue watching.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, oh, maybe I'll like go back and maybe watch the last 20 minutes or something just so that I can get it. I'm one of those people, I hate when my Netflix queue is like, continue watching. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to watch it. I'm like, I finished it or whatever. So I went to click on it and they changed it. I feel like when we watched it at your place, it was 4 separate episodes that were all 20 minutes. They updated it, and there's just 1 episode, and it's 90 minutes.
What? Wait, I'm gonna pull this up now, because I don't like that.
And, I mean, like, they just put it all in one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's not separated into the 4 parts.
Did it come out like that? Like, did they, release it in 4 weeks? Or
I think when I think it was like a 2-hour special finale.
Yeah. So is Comet, an hour and 32 minutes long. And
the reason that... And also, like, the reason for the Ember Island Players episode is because they aired that the week before, and then they also aired it right before they did the finale. And because Ember Island Players acted as a, like, recap for people who had maybe not... Because this was also... Listeners, this was before the age of Netflix.
Right,
and online...
You
had to watch it every week.
Yep.
Or you had to... like, look ahead on the TV guide schedule to be like, oh, they're going to air this episode that I missed.
Yep.
So you might have missed a couple episodes of it and missed some parts and been like, wait, why is there this like weird tension between Katara and Zuko?
Yeah.
Like what happened in Ba Sing Se or whatever. Okay, anyway, I totally cut you off. Yes, what were your favorite episodes?
You're good. So the season finale of book 1, I really liked, so I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan, like Miyazaki and that kind of thing, and it felt really reminiscent of that, with like, Aang going into the Avatar state, and that's the first time you really see him use it for like, offense, I think. So it was just a very grand, like kind of epic battle, epic scene. Also just, I enjoyed the story for that one with Yue, that's her name, right?
My girlfriend turned into the moon.
That's rough, buddy.
So, when we were watching this, I sent you when that happened, I sent you the message in our chat saying, like, you don't know it yet, but you're watching the start of one of the greatest lines from this series. And it's
about that. It was
like
a slow
2 seasons later.
Yeah.
My girlfriend turned into the moon. That's rough, buddy.
But I think that was the first episode where I was really like, this is a really good show. Like, I'd been enjoying it up till then, but they kind of pulled it all out for the finale. My next one was in book 2, chapter 7, Zuko Alone. I love Zuko so much. I love his character arc. I love how everything from the first moment you meet him up until the end is all working towards that end goal. And that was just such a cool character building episode for him. It was a little bit filler, like there wasn't a whole lot of plot driven stuff, but it kind of reveals a lot more of that world that they're living in.
It was a character episode. It wasn't so much a plot episode, but it was a character episode of like setting up and explaining kind of why who he is, you know?
And also just the way that others view the Fire Nation. Like, I think he says something like later near the end of season 3 about like, you know, we were taught that the Fire Nation is this benevolent force that came through to like unite the nations and to help them, and that's not how they feel. They're terrified of us. And so that was kind of cool seeing like how Zuko's starting to realize that as he's interacting with the Earth Nation people, which I really enjoyed that episode. Also, long-haired Zuko. Quality.
Yes, yeah, because that's also like one of the first episodes where his hair is like finally starting to grow out.
Yep. There it is. And then the last one was another kind of filler episode, The Tales of Ba Sing Se. Oh my gosh. The beginning with Iroh obviously broke my heart, but the rest of that episode...
Falling so slow, like fragile tiny shells drifting in the foam.
So, also, I told Bethany, I was like, text me when you watch The Tales of Ba Sing Se, because it's a fact.
It's so
it's
sad.
not fun.
It's not fun at
I was
all.
like, I have information to tell you that will really, like, add to this episode. And when she finished, I told her, I said, so the reason it said at the end of Iroh's tale, it says, like, this is, like, in memory or dedicated to Mako. Mako is the original voice actor for Iroh, and he died while they were in the midst of filming recording season 2. Supposedly, the Leaves from the Vine, that tale is the last audio that they got from him. I don't know how true that is, if that was like something someone just like wrote to make it sadder.
Well, I read too, which again could be something that somebody made up to make it sadder, but I read that he like recorded that when he already knew that he was dying of cancer.
Oh, just awful, yeah. And then the new voice actor, which by the way, I'm sure if I hadn't told you that his voice actor died halfway through, you can't tell.
Yeah.
So like, and his new voice actor fans would ask him to like sing that song or whatever. He's like, no, that's not my song. Yeah.
I love him.
Fun fact,
I love Iroh. Iroh's my favorite character.
All quality. So I think it's so interesting follow-up question, what was your favorite season?
I think 2, because I feel like that's where a lot of character growth happens, and it's where it really ramps up.
That's true, yeah.
1. Like, season 1, it's great, obviously, but it's very much the intro. You're meeting the characters, you're getting to know the world, you're getting to know, like, the laws and the rules and everything. And once that's established in season 2, they can really ramp up with what's going on in, like, the character building and the drama of just the whole world and everything. And I really liked season 3. I kind of hit a wall in season 3, which maybe if I go back and watch it again, I would like it more. But I feel like I was really like grinding through the episodes. And I got midway through season 3.
It's so funny you tell me that because so my favorite episodes, mine are. I hope this can count because it's a two-parter, but mine are the Boiling Rock, where Zuko and Sokka go to the prison.
Yeah.
In season 2, City of Walls and Secrets, which is the episode. With
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
And you learn that the Dai Li is brainwashing everyone.
I thought about putting that, but I was like, I didn't enjoy that episode at all, though. It just freaked me out. It was amazing.
So cool.
And I really enjoyed that after I finished watching that episode. I would text Mary Clay every once in a while I was watching it, mostly like goofy little thoughts or whatever. But I texted you after I finished that episode, just in all caps, is this a children's show?
Yeah. And
no context, and she knew exactly what I was talking about.
I sent her, I replied with the gif of there is no war in Ba Sing Se.
Yep.
Oh, and like, well, the thing is that rewatching it, I completely forgot that in that they replace Judy.
That was the thing that got me.
I forgot about that.
Oh my gosh.
So when that happens and they open the door and they're like, oh, here's Judy. And they're like, that's not Judy.
And she's like got this big creepy grin on her face. That was the moment, like, all of the rest was scary and everything. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
They're like often people that aren't complying with them. Like, that's so scary.
But anyway, so my favorite season is the 3rd season, and in particular, the second half of the season.
Okay.
In my opinion, when Zuko, so I would say from the eclipse, the solar eclipse episode on to the end of the season, it's like banger after banger after banger of an episode. Specifically because, it's so funny because with the writers, they have the episode where Zuko joins them, and then after that, it's just Zuko field trip, Zuko field trip. So then when it gets to the point where Toph wants to go on a field trip with him.
I'm going with Zuko. What? Everyone else went on a life-changing field trip with Zuko. Now it's my turn.
Like, I remember her making that joke, but I didn't realize that, like, oh no, literally all of the episodes from the time Zuko joins them to the time where there's the finale, they're all field trip episodes.
Pretty much. And I love that the writers can, like, poke at themselves that way.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot, which is great.
So I think it's interesting that you were like, oh, I was really struggling kind of halfway through season 3. Especially when I got midway, and I'm like, oh, really? Because that's when I was like, yeah!
But I think, again,
you didn't know at that point that Zuko, you didn't know what was to come.
Right.
And that's what I was excited for, is I knew that they were going to be able to
got
Zuko
to a point
trips.
with season 3. I'm really bad at binging. I don't binge shows at all. Like, 2 episodes of a show is enough for one day for me. And I flew through this show. I was watching like an episode while I ate breakfast, an episode during lunch, episode or two.
They're
like,
20 minutes.
They're 20 minutes, so they're quick. But I think I just kind of burned out by season 3, and it was also getting to the point where it was like, I need to beat the internet in their like,
you
know,
you
their
didn't know
time
how it was
before
going to
they
end.
start posting spoilers.
Yeah,
because we're kind of at that point now where people assume like everybody's finished it and now we can post more stuff. And I really wanted to beat that so I could still enjoy the ending. So I think the closer I got to the ending, the more it felt like almost like a chore. Like I was still enjoying it, but so maybe if I went back and watched it again.
And it's funny because I was totally binging it, and then I got through parts of season 3, and I kind of slowed down my watching, but kind of for the opposite reason, because I was like, oh wait, I've like flown through this. I need to stop and savor it.
Right.
So okay, and then what was your least favorite episode? And we might have the same answer.
I don't know that I have like a super least favorite. If I had to pick one, I was thinking of the one where Toph hustles people. They're like in the Earth Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
I think I might have enjoyed that. I was kind of thinking about all your questions of like what 11-year-old me would have thought versus what 26-year-old me would think. And I think a lot of that was I'm like, this is irresponsible of you all. You need to stop doing this. Which maybe if I was a kid, I would have been like, oh, this is so funny. Like, yeah, they're pulling all these jokes and making all this money. I know, whatever.
My least favorite, and it's like the fan least favorite, is The Great Divide, which is the one where they go in the canyon with the 2 tribes and they're just annoying.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with the plot.
Right.
Like the only way I think they could have brought it back to make it better is if they brought the 2 tribes in on the invasion episodes.
Yeah. That
maybe.
Would have been kind of a stretch.
And what I appreciate most is that the writers acknowledged how much or how little people liked this episode. In the Ember Island Players episode, there's a moment in the play where they're flying and they're like,
look, it's the Great Divide, the biggest canyon in the Earth Kingdom.
Let's keep flying.
And that was the writers recognizing that, like, okay, we all know
episode.
This episode isn't fun.
Yeah.
And what I specifically remember is that was also an episode that they would play, like, they would, like, replay constantly.
Oh, really?
And, like, it was always on repeat. And I'm like, no one cares about this one!
Right. Anything else?
Yes.
Yeah, that one, I agree. That one wasn't great. I could appreciate the, modern application of 2 groups that just hate each other because of
a conflict so long ago that like you don't fully remember or understand it. So what were some of your expectations going in, having like picked up on some of the cultural pieces and whatnot?
I had really high expectations going into this show. Like, it's such a thing on the internet, like not even, I don't know, let me back that up. Like, you see people talking about it online all the time, like even before it was on Netflix. Just the last like 6-ish years of my life, I've seen all of these memes and all of these posts about, like, oh, Avatar's such a great show because it teaches kids all of these different themes and, like, the storytelling is great and blah, blah, blah. So I was kind of going into it with that and expecting, like, if other people are still super into this, it must be really good. Not just, like, another regular kind of goofy kids show. Like, there must be something more substantial to this. So I had rather high expectations for it. I did know the things I had picked up. I knew about the cabbage guy.
My cabbages!
All over the internet, so I knew about that. Truly enjoyed whenever he showed up in the show. I was like, there's my cabbage guy. I recognize him. I knew that Zuko became a good guy. That was the only real spoiler that I got from the show, which
however, I
salty,
think...
But...
Well, I mean, granted, like, I knew what was going to happen with his character rewatching it, but I think they do a good, like, there are definitely a lot of hints early on that, like,
it's leading up to
he's
that.
Not really the main, like, even in season 1, there are a lot of moments of, like, oh, he's not the main bad guy.
Yeah. Especially once Azula is, like, introduced.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we've just one-upped Zuko. Like, he's not our main concern anymore. But, yeah. So I could tell going into it, like, that's what was going to happen. But that was, like, my only main big spoiler, I think. Yeah. I mostly just wanted to see what all the hype was about.
Did it live up to the hype?
It did live up to the hype, absolutely. Like, you know how you kind of build things up in your mind as a kid? Because, like, I did watch it a little bit, and I really, really liked it. And I remember talking about it with my friends a little bit, and, like, seeing it... I'll get on the, like, Nickelodeon website and, like, play games and stuff when I was a little kid. And just, like, seeing it on there. So kind of wondering if my little kid brain was onto something or if, it was kind of overblown.
Yeah. Also, like, some, I don't know, background about my experience watching this. So, I definitely, I don't think I ever was like, oh, it's 8 o'clock on Thursday, I have to sit down and watch Avatar, it's a new episode. But I definitely liked it a lot. But my mom was like, that's a boy show or something. I was like, no, that's like weirdo. I think she probably thought it was like anime or something. Which is also like up for debate about whether Avatar The Last Airbender is anime or not. Because a lot of people are like, it's really inspired by anime.
It is.
I would say it's the most Western version of anime.
Super Western, yeah.
Anyway, and so I think my mom was just like, no, that's like weirdo, like comic book,
like
nerd,
Pokemon
geeky stuff. Yeah. She would always like make me feel weird if she like came in the room and I was watching it. Aww. So I would like watch it in secret. It wasn't like forbidden, but it was like frowned upon. Yeah. So I would watch it in secret or whatever. So what was it like watching? So this is a children's show, quote unquote, a children's show.
We think it's a children's show.
Except for those darker moments. What was it like watching this for the first time as an adult?
Okay, so I think I weirdly got more into certain parts as an adult than I would have. Again, trying to think of like what 11-year-old me would have been really into versus what I connected with as an adult. There was a part, I think it was right at the like season 2 finale. I was so scared to watch that, and I was like texting Mary Clay about it. The way that everything led up, like Zuko and Iroh had their tea shop. They were both happy for the first time.
Zuko went through his
metamorphosis.
The fandom has coined his angst coma.
Yes,
which is I like forgot rewatching that part. It was so funny because it's like, oh my god, Zuko really did one redeemable thing,
and you're so concerned
and collapsed over it.
He collapses. You're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Is he like
he did a nice
sick?
thing?
Is he like wounded?
He did a nice thing.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
So and Bethany was like, I'm scared to watch the finale.
Legitimately, it wasn't even a like, oh, what if this happens? It was like, Iroh's going to die, and I don't want to watch that because.
And I had to tell her when we started. I was like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm going to remind you, this is a kid's show.
She told me
they're not going to kill anyone.
This is not Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
it's
no one's going to die.
Don't worry about it.
Even the one character, Jet, they made it such an ambiguous death.
Did Jet just die? It's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Did Jet just die? You know, it was really unclear.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a kid's show.
Yeah, and I think, the way that you engage with entertainment over time changes because, we're always watching stuff and always learning more about, storytelling. And so that's what I got from that scene was, okay, well, they've lined up all of these things. I know how this story plays out. It's going to end tragically for somebody, which I don't think 11-year-old me would have connected those dots necessarily, which is interesting. I also remember, it's funny thinking back, the episode that hit me the most when I was 11 that I got up to, I only watched a little bit, was after the kids were out in a storm and Katara and Sokka got sick and Aang has to go and find the medicine or whatever.
Oh, I have to say, side note, that's also another one of my favorite episodes is because of the blue spirit and it's it's Zuko and Aang. This is also my defense for gotten a huge Twitter fight with Tyler over whether Aang is a Hufflepuff or a Gryffindor. And I believe that there are two kinds of people. There are people who firmly believe that Aang is a Hufflepuff and people who firmly believe that Aang is a Gryffindor. And I think he's a Hufflepuff because in the Blue Spirit episode, his enemy is lying there at the end. Aang what happens is Zuko falls down and the mask falls off. And Aang could have easily just and he actually does. He starts to run away.
Multiple occasions.
And then he turns back and saves him. And then they're lying in the forest and a Gryffindor would have tied him up or killed him or run away or left him to die or something. Yeah. But Aang is such a Hufflepuff that he sits there and talks to him about his friend Kuzan in the Fire Nation and is like, Zuko, do you think we could ever be friends?
Forgot about
That's such a Hufflepuff thing. Are you kidding me? Anyway.
So pure.
So you were talking about watching that episode, yes.
Yeah, when I was a kid, didn't care about any of that I remember as a kid. I was like,
funny.
oh my gosh, Katara and Sokka are going to die because they got colds.
They got sick,
It was like, that's like those kind of things that I was focusing on when I was a kid that I thought was like high drama and like, oh, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to know what I thought of later episodes that obviously did ramp it up a little bit more, which I will never know. But yeah, just different things that I connected with as an adult versus what I think I would have as a kid.
I think the, like, darker themes or plots or whatever, like, the Ba Sing Se, there is no war in Ba Sing Se plot. I think that with kids and younger generations who watched it probably was just like, oh, what a, like, scary thing for a fictional world to make
right.
up.
Oh, ooh,
Whereas
ooh.
it's creepier and weirder and darker for us to watch it because we know that, like, that's a reality.
Yeah.
And, like, as
true.
kids, you're like, oh, what a, like, scary, like, it's just as scary as, like, the boogeyman or something. And
Not
as an
having
adult,
that
you
connection
know that,
to
like,
reality.
that kind of stuff does happen.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm a big book nerd and writer, and I appreciate a well-told story. There were a couple of moments in this where it was like, Aang or Sokka or somebody said something, and like setting up a line for somebody else, and my brain kind of jumped ahead and was like, they're gonna say this really cheesy thing, or like, you know, that's what they're setting up for this gag or whatever, and they wouldn't do that. It would be like better writing than I anticipated, which was kind of fun. It was like, I kind of had to up my opinion of the writers a little bit as it went on. Like, they weren't gonna take the easy, cheap gag. They were gonna actually have really good dialogue throughout the show, which
these writers were, like, really good. Oh, it's not a fun fact, but it's a fact, again. An interesting fact. The episode, Appa's Lost Days.
Oh my
Which,
gosh,
by
I
the
forgot
way,
about that whole storyline.
So,
also killed me.
Oh,
Appa being lost.
so actually another one of my favorite episodes is the library, when they're in the desert and they go to visit the library.
Sounds great.
But I don't think I could say that's my favorite because of what happens to Appa.
Yup.
Anyway, so first of all, Nickelodeon wanted to traumatize us as children because the Tales of Ba Sing Se is immediately followed by Appa's Lost Days. And so when I was and I usually, when I was rewatching it this time, I would watch maybe like 2 or 3 episodes at a time, and I watched the Tales of Ba Sing Se. I was sobbing. I was like, I'm an adult.
They should have, like, finished with Iroh's story,
And
not
then-
led with it, and then given you all of
I
these,
think it's
like,
because they're like, it's a kid's show. Like, I think
like,
if they had
lighten it up
ended,
after. That's true. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then, so that episode is immediately followed by Appa's Lost Days.
Yeah.
And I was so, like, I was crying so hard from the previous one that I could not watch it. I like, fast forwarded through it.
I think, I forgot too. I think that I took a break in between those episodes too, because I think I saw your tweet about, like, how that episode was so sad.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of, like, trying to figure out what I knew about this story while I was watching it, and I realized I didn't necessarily know if Appa made it to the end. And so there was a little bit in my head that was like, Appa hasn't been in these shows for a while. They don't know what happened. Is this it? Like, is Appa going to make it out of this too? I was very stressed in season 2.
So, I think that's another reason why season 2, like, it's a good season, but it's not my favorite season, because season 2 is stressful.
It's very stressful.
Because there's, in the beginning of it, we have this rift between Iroh and Zuko. There's a whole episode where, like, there's a lot of, like, Katara and Toph fighting.
Yeah.
And being annoyed with each other. There's, like, Azula is, like, rising to power.
Yeah.
There's the Ba Sing Se plot. All this stuff that's really stressful.
That's why I liked it, though, because I didn't anticipate that from this show.
Yeah.
Like,
it's good writing.
Yeah.
To say. Anyway, so the Appa's Lost Days episode won a Humane Society Award for its portrayal of the mistreatment of animals.
Aww.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
But that's not a good thing.
It's not. That's why I said this isn't a fun fact. It's just a fact.
What did I write down related to that? Hold on. I saw another award. I'm sure this show has won tons of awards, but one of them I saw won an award for storytelling, but also in the way that it honestly portrayed the effects of war. And I appreciate that so much because I see that skimmed over a lot in kids' shows. For example, I've been watching The Clone Wars on Disney+. I'm a huge nerd. It's fine.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Surprise! If you don't know, if any of your readers don't know, The Clone Wars is a cartoon that takes place in between episode 2 and 3 of Star Wars. So it's kind of...
This means nothing to me because I haven't seen a single piece of Star Wars. So.
We gotta watch it. So it's essentially, episode 2 ends with Anakin Skywalker, who will become Darth Vader, kind of being a cool Jedi and doing his thing. And then episode 3 opens up with him, like, significantly eviler than we left him.
Oops.
So the Clone Wars cartoon is kind of in between to kind of bridge that gap. And it's a fine show. It's not my favorite or anything like that. But there's a lot of episodes in that show where it's like, oh, wow, this is really showing, like, there was this really traumatic battle where a lot of the clones were just, like, brutally killed, or Anakin and Obi-Wan go and do this mission and, like, they're both really bothered by it, and then they never speak of it again.
Yeah.
And I was like, that kind of bothers me a little bit. Like, I would joke after some of those, like, oh, I hope there's an episode where they all go to the bar and, like, get some drinks and talk about this, because this was really serious stuff. And it's like, nah, they're just kind of an episode a week kind of thing, like an adventure a week kind of thing. But I really appreciated with Avatar that, not that, you know, they lingered on these sad, traumatic things, but it impacted the decisions that characters made. It was never something that they swept aside.
Specifically,
and moved on with.
I'm thinking in the Zuko Alone episode, where they don't, like, sure, they're showing this, like, transformation and journey that Zuko's going on, and they're kind of, like, explaining why he is who he is. But at the same time, they still show that this village and these people have been hurt by the Fire Nation. And even when Zuko has been helping this family and helping this little boy, when he's revealed to be a part and the prince of this nation that has been doing, like, systematic harm, that it's, like, unforgivable.
Yeah.
And
that comes up when he is confronting the Fire Lord later on in season 3. He doesn't, like, specifically say it, but he references, like, these people are terrified, and they should be. Like, I've been among them, I've seen what we've done, and I've, like, stayed with this family. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. Just mostly the whole story flows together so well.
In Ba Sing Se, they touch on, and they do this a lot more in The Legend of Korra, with Ba Sing Se specifically, but they talk about, like, the class system and poverty and stuff, because there's the upper ring, the middle ring, and the lower ring. And in Legend of Korra, there's a season particularly where it focuses on, like, this rift and how Ba Sing Se is, like, crumbling and it's weak because it's so divided, and the lower ring is so poor and at an unfair advantage compared to the rest of the city. Okay, and then some questions I didn't send you.
Oh, snap.
Who was your favorite character?
Uncle Iroh. I love him so much.
Iroh.
I saw a Father's Day image going around, like, a week or so ago for Father's Day of the gang all, like, group hugging Iroh, and it just warmed my little heart. So glad he didn't die.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
Who's your favorite, maybe, like, side character or background character or something like that?
Ooh.
That maybe it's not a part of the main gang.
Yeah. There's, like, so many coming to mind. I really liked Monkey Yatso. Like, that's kind of a random one, and he was really only in season 1. I could pick somebody a little more relevant, but I loved, like, he felt like a grown-up Aang, where he was very wise and, like, a good leader and, like, guide for Aang, but he was also very, like, goofy and fun and wanted Aang to have, like, a good childhood and everything, and I really liked him.
Nice.
I liked Jet until he maybe died.
You know, it was really unclear.
My favorite character is Zuko. like literally,
very close second for me.
Literally every other girl who watched this show.
It's fine. It's not because he's hot.
We're all in love with Zuko. It's fine.
Yep, the hair. It's the hair.
If you were a bender, what element would you bend?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Really? Is that... I thought for sure you'd be like, oh, duh, she would ask this.
No, I didn't think you would ask me other questions, so this is fun.
Yeah, I wanted to be a bit more on the spot.
I want to say Earth, or not Earth. I want to say water. Not necessarily because I know that, like, oh, my personality really matches with that, as my personality does not seem to match at all with the others. Like, I don't think I'm aggressive enough for Earth or fire. I don't think I'm peaceful enough for air.
I don't think anyone is. Does anyone deserve to be an airbender, really?
Nope. So I think I think water is a good balance between, like, kind of a bridge between the two. Like, it is powerful, and I like that Katara makes it a lot more weaponized later on with, like, the ice and being able to, like, track people and stuff, but it's also got, like, healing aspects to it. Yep. So, I think I'd go with that.
Cool.
How about you, Mary Clay?
I would be a firebender. Does that surprise anyone?
Nah. I can see it. Not
with
in
my
not
like
an evil way.
Unnecessary aggression against random things. No.
Would you have a dance party for all your classmates?
Yeah. Probably. Oh, that's another. So listen. When we finished watching the finale, Bethany told me that she had seen a joke about like there's a TikTok of a guy and it's like two people in the tea shop and they're like, yo, I just got back from the Fire Lord's coronation. Lee is the Fire Lord.
No way.
They're like, Lee with the tea. And there's a follow-up to that, and it's like the Fire Nation kids realizing that this random kid who threw them a dance party is the Avatar.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I really enjoyed that episode too because it was so goofy, like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Fire Nation school. It's fun.
Also, in that episode, it like accurately shows how inaccurately history is written because it's a very like short, subtle moment, but there's a moment in the episode where the teacher's like, "When did the Fire Nation fight the Air Nation army or whatever?" And then Aang is like, but the Air Nation didn't have a formalized military or formalized isn't a word, is it? I don't know. Sure. The Air Nation didn't have a formal military because they're peaceful people. And the way that the Fire Nation is telling this history of how the 100-Year War started, because this was 100 years ago, so the people who were teaching it weren't even around, so they don't know the truth. And they're telling the story that it was the Air Nation and the Fire Nation fought, and it's like, no, the Fire Nation came in and wiped out the Air Nation is what happened. Yep. It was all that was all very Hitler Youth-y. Yeah. Oh yeah. It wasn't when they go and like do music class or whatever, they're playing like Fire Nation anthems or like marches or something. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that whole thing. That's a fun episode, and like I really enjoyed watching the episode, but there were a lot of parts in there where you're like, ooh. And like that's why I think the show has held up so well over the years. Is because of those smaller moments that like show the reality of like war and whatnot. Yep. What was maybe like one of your favorite jokes or running gags or something like that, or a line? Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like I'd have to look back through the episodes. Or maybe was there a particular moment where you're like, ha, that was good, that was funny? Probably, I don't know. My mind is going blank. Okay, look at. So, one that got me... You go. One that got me was when Sokka, it's at the start of the Boiling Rock episode, Sokka is going to sneak off, and Zuko's sitting on Appa and scares Sokka, and he falls down, and he's like, fine, you caught me. Are you happy? And Zuko goes, I'm never happy.
Fine. You caught me. I'm gonna rescue my dad. You happy now? I'm never happy. I did really enjoy all of the angsty Zuko. What was it when he joined the gang and Sokka thinks like Appa swallowed somebody and so he goes climbing into his mouth and Zuko's like, get out of the bison's mouth, Sokka. I did like that one a lot. No, that was when... That was in the finale when Aang disappears. And and I saved a TikTok of it too, because it's so funny. Appa ate Momo! Momo, I'm coming for you, buddy! Get out of the bison's mouth, Sokka. You don't have to have an answer for this. No, because I know that I'm going to regret if I don't. Okay, well maybe like maybe another way to ask this is like, did you think the show was funny? Because that's another part that I think people like sharing and resharing, or like the jokes or the funny lines or whatever. Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking of all, like I honestly really did like the Cabbage Guy, and I liked that it was a reoccurring thing through there. I liked all of Zuko's angst, liked the that's rough buddy. Yeah, and I remember that as a kid because obviously that's what you're going to remember more as a little kid, is the stuff that was funny and made you laugh. And kind of thinking back on that before I started watching it, was like, oh, this is going to be like a goofy kid's show. Am I going to like this? But it was like, it was genuinely really funny at times. There were a couple where I was like, the joke didn't really land with me. It was kind of meant for the younger kids, but overall, I liked it a lot. All right, I think that was like a good discussion. Wrap up. Yeah, I mean, were there any like final thoughts or anything you have? You got me, when we watched it together at the end... you asked me like halfway through what I thought was going to happen. Right. And I legitimately did not know, which was fun.
Because when we started, I was like, oh, how do you like you do for me all the time?
Yeah, yes.
Listeners, this was also like a fun journey for me because it's reversed our relationship where I have been watching Bethany like make predictions and experience things for the first. Oh, like there was one episode that we were doing together or whatever, and I kept making jokes about like, I'm sure that won't come up again, wink, wink. And then there was an episode where they mentioned like Zuko's mom running. I think it was Zuko alone. And you texted me and you're like, so Zuko's mom is still alive?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that won't come up again. And I wanted so badly to be like, it won't.
I was so upset.
They address it in the comics that they've written.
Which I kind of want to read.
I have a link I'll send you.
Oh, sweet. Thanks.
Yeah. That they do go into, and they make a great joke about this in Legend of the first 5 minutes of Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
And it starts off with Aang's son, who is an airbender, Tenzin, and his family come to the South Pole to meet Korra, where she's the new Avatar, and they come down there, and one of Tenzin's children goes up to Katara and is like, oh, Grandma!
Gran, I've been reading all about your old adventures. I've been dying to ask you, what happened to Zuko's mom?
Well, Denora, it's an incredible tale.
Gran, you look old.
So, that was, again, the writers poking fun that, they knew this was a burning question the fandom has had.
And they're just gonna keep saying, nope.
But it was written about in the comics.
Gotcha. I'll have to read it.
But anyway, yeah, so when we were starting, I was like, starting the finale, I was like, so how do you think this is going to end? Because obviously I know, and I love it when you ask me those questions. So, and you were like, well, I thought Aang was going to kill the Fire Lord, but...
And it wasn't even, that's not even something that I considered before. It was just assumed, this is what he has to do. He has to kill the Fire Lord. That's the point of this show. And then they had that episode where Aang, starts to question that and is like, wait, I don't kill things. I'm a vegetarian. I don't want to do this.
Because I can't remember if it's the episode. I think it's the episode before Ember Island Players. And it ends with, because Katara goes off and is like, I'm going to kill this man who killed my mom. And Aang's like, killing is not going to solve anything. And they get back, and Zuko's like, so I'm glad that this adventure ended happily and we're all fine. But, what do you think is gonna happen when you go to fight my dad?
Yeah.
And, that's how the episode ends.
And that was the first time I'd really thought, and I'm sure, the rest of the audience, too, were like, wait a minute. So that was really cool. And then I didn't really have an answer for it. Watching it, I kind of, part of me thought, well, he's gonna have to do it anyway, but that would be really dark for a kid's show if we introduced this conflict. And then we're like, nah, it's fine. He'll just kill him. No worries. But I don't know if they came up with a good way to work around it. It was a little bit Deus Ex Machina, but it worked out.
So actually, in Legend of Korra, there's a really great, I think it might be a 2-part episode, where they go, and it's so cool because they use a totally different animation style, and they go into the history and they show the first Avatar.
Oh, cool.
And they show that what happened was he, long ago, billions of years ago, whatever, when there was no Avatar, people lived on these lion turtle islands. And there were 4 lion turtles, and they would give people the power of an element so that they could go into the woods and protect themselves, but then they would take it back. And so what happens is the Avatar he gets banished into the spirit forest, and he gets to keep the gift of fire, and then he slowly learns the world of the spirits, and then he eventually learns that there are other lion turtle cities. And he goes around, and each of the lion turtles bestow on him the gift of air, water, earth. So he has all the elements and stuff. So this concept of the lion turtles are the ones who originally gave the Avatar the gift. So when Aang when he has that weird thing where he's on the lion turtle island and meets the lion turtle, the thing that the lion turtle did. Oh, that's right. We were watching it, and you were like, I don't know what he just said, because his voice is really
gravelly, and
essentially what he did there, I don't know if he gave Aang the power to do it, or if he just kind of let Aang know that hey, you have this power to take away people's bending.
Okay. That would I would appreciate that more if it was this is a power, a latent power that you didn't know about. hey,
But,
I
like,
know you don't want to kill the Fire Lords.
it kind of
goes.
Goes back to the sources of like the lion turtles are the ones who gave the gift of elements originally.
Which that makes sense. I've already got such a high opinion of this show and its storytelling. I feel like they could have dropped something like that in a season or two ago to kind of lead up to it. It just kind of felt like it was
for sure,
out of the blue, but it was still a fantastic finale.
Kind of on that train of thought, was there anything like overall about the series that didn't live up to current standards, or you thought like, that wasn't that good, or that was kind of disappointing or something?
Not really, except for that I thought was kind of a weird, not plot hole, but it was kind of a weird last minute thing. And with Zuko's mom, I thought that was strange. And it would have been less strange, like I could have kind of written it off if they didn't have him like right at the end of the show go and confront his father and say like, where's my mother? Because that was very much a like, oh, we remember this. We're just not going to tell you what happened.
Yeah, and I want to like look more into it. A part of me, like watching it now as an adult, in the way that like I know that TV shows are created and how TV shows keep getting renewed or whatever, and how sequels keep coming out, is like watching it now. You think, oh, very obviously, this was the writers trying to set up for another season, perhaps, or maybe a spin-off show where it follows Zuko. And he's trying to, like, restore the Fire Nation. Yeah. Or, like, help, repair the damages and stuff that they've done. And then it would go into, like,
interesting.
Him discovering what happened to his mom.
Yeah.
But I guess obviously that didn't happen, so that's when I think they made the comics.
Right.
Because the comics do go into that territory. Yay.
I'm so glad I finally got to watch it. Yay. I've been wanting to for a while. It's like,
it was just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time and finding a place to watch it.
Right, yeah. Nickelodeon, if you're listening, I would appreciate it if you could put Legend of Korra on Netflix. I have found... listeners,
Can you say this?
I mentioned it... I've already mentioned it in, I think, last week's episode. You can watch Legend of Korra on a website called animedao.com. Spelled anime... DAO.com. Just be warned that, like, whenever you, like, click on the play button or the pause button or whatever, there will be a pop-up ad that's annoying. But once you close out of it, it's fine. And that's how I've been watching Legend of Korra. And there are a lot of moments where I'm like, oh man, the writers really didn't care. Because, so I guess my warning about Legend of Korra is that because a lot of people hate on it. Unnecessarily, in my opinion, they hate on it. And the reason they hate on it is because they're probably coming at it from a frame of mind of like, oh, this is like Avatar, the sequel or whatever. It's not a sequel. Think of it as like, it's an entirely new, because it is. Yeah. It's an entirely new story. It's set... 80, 90 years, whatever, in the future after Aang has died. Yeah. A lot has changed. It's not about Aang and Katara and Sokka and Zuko anymore. It's about this next generation and these new problems that have emerged. And it was also the writers writing a show. They weren't writing, like, a show for a new generation of 10-year-olds for them to enjoy their generation's Avatar. They were writing it for our generation who had since grown up. Yeah. And could handle these, like, darker themes or whatever. So, anyway, that's fun.
Yeah, darkness. We just finished talking about the depressing chapter of Return of the King,
right?
So dark and spooky kind of mood.
Yep. Alright, I don't know how to end these things. My cabbages!